Neal Battaglia, saxstation.com. In the beginning Saxophone Players group that I put together, I asked a question. Asked what the people in the group thought that the easiest song to learn on the saxophone was. And I figured having some different input from different people could help other beginning saxophone players as they're starting to learn the instrument. I do try and think about what it is like to be starting off with the instrument. For example, with a foreign language, you start off, you learn a few words, you kind of get the beginning stages, but you have a lot. With the saxophone, you have a similar situation. You start off learning some notes, you put them together, you start to get some song. So the things that make a song easy or hard can actually depend on which song it is. A song might be really fast, and that might be difficult. It might have transitions between certain notes that are hard to execute in a clean manner. So certain transitions between notes, like from A to B, you're just moving one finger. There's not really a lot of ways to mess that up. But going, for example, from B to C without tonguing, you can get an extra note in between there. You can get some schmutz. So if the song has a place where you go from B to C on your saxophone and it's slurred, then you need to be able to use the right technique to make that sound good. Sometimes having a lot of different notes can make things difficult. For example, if you're playing on a key signature of 5 flats and then suddenly you're playing to 4 sharps and then you go back to 5 flats, that might be kind of difficult to kind of switch quickly. Sometimes the rhythms in songs are difficult and they might just be unfamiliar. So once you kind of get it in your head, then it becomes easier. Other rhythms are just more challenging to play. So what makes a song easy has to do with the notes. It could have to do with the rhythm. Sometimes it has to do with the transition between notes and how you play it. Sometimes a really simple song can actually be hard to make it sound good. So you're not changing between notes very quickly. You're not changing a lot of rhythms. You just need to make the tone sound good. Otherwise it won't really sound good. So when I asked this question, I got a few different responses, and a few of them actually came up more than once. One that came up 2 times was hot cross buns. So basically these kind of nursery rhyme songs. A lot of times they just have a few notes and the rhythms are pretty simple. You might have heard them a long time ago. Maybe they kind of stick in your head, so that might be pretty easy to learn. Another one was actually When the Saints Go Marching In. For the Saints Go Marching In, it actually starts off with 3 notes, and then you play the same 3 notes, and then you play the same 3 notes, and eventually you play a couple more notes, but you really only have 5 notes, and there's a lot of repetition of the notes. You also start off on the root, you end on the root, and you kind of come back to the root a lot. So the patterns in the music are something you can kind of remember and or figure out. Another one on the list that came up more than once was Amazing Grace. I think partly it's a fairly simple melody, but it's also probably something that you might have heard many times. It's something that's familiar. So that can also make a song easier to learn. One more that was on the list that came up more than once was Summertime by George Gershwin, and that's a fairly simple melody that might be easy to learn. A few other songs that came up on the list were Oh Susanna, so kind of along the lines of Hot Cross Buns, kind of a children's song. Ain't No Sunshine came up once. I feel like that might just be a song that you might like and then it kind of gets in your head. Happy Birthday came up a couple times. I think that's a song that's very familiar to a lot of people, and the melody is pretty simple. You see sort of patterns that come back and change a little bit, so you kind of build upon what you're playing in the song. St. Thomas and Fly Me to the Moon both came up. Those might be songs you've heard many times. They're both fairly simple melodies. Bobby McFerrin's Don't Worry Be Happy came up on the list. That has 5 notes and it's fairly easy to get the melody. Sometimes things that you can sing easily, you can also play easily on the saxophone. And one song that's a little bit more modern that came up was Havana by Camila Cabello. And that is actually a pretty simple melody to learn. I learned it a little while ago, not too long after it came out. Mary Had a Little Lamb came up on the list as well. So basically songs are easy in different ways. In Saxophone Foundations, which is the beginning saxophone class that I put together, I kind of start off with simple melodies that start with just a few notes. I think that there are probably a few songs that have 2 notes, but I think there are actually more that have 3 notes. And then once you kind of add on more notes, you have more and more possibilities. You can also think about changing the key of the song that you're playing it in. So for example, you could play Happy Birthday starting on any note that you want. So conceptually, it's probably easiest to start in C major. You don't have to think about sharps or flats. That might not actually be the easiest to play in terms of technique on the saxophone, but it is probably the easiest to think about. So you could play in C major if you want for Happy Birthday. For that one, you're going to end up playing one note that's outside of C major, but mostly you're going to stick to C major. In Saxophone Foundations, I have the music for Mary Had a Little Lamb, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, When the Saints Go Marching In, a lot of these kind of simple melodies, and I record them on tenor, alto, and soprano. One melody that no one actually in the group listed, but that I think is pretty simple to learn, is Taps by Neal Battaglia. So that melody has 3 notes. So 3 notes, but one of those notes you also use the octave key. So you could think about it as 4 notes if you want, but basically 3 or 4 notes. You play the first note, you play the first note again, then you go to another note. That's the first phrase. So you play some long notes, you don't move too quickly with anything. I think it's a pretty easy melody to kind of get under your fingers on the saxophone. And if you want to play in a different key, you can go ahead and do that. So again, first note, repeat that note, go up a fourth. So it can help you as you're learning to play music that you enjoy, that you know well, that you like. Sometimes those songs might be a little bit more challenging to play. For example, if you really like the song Take 5 by Paul Desmond, great tune, but it's not going to be the easiest song to play on the saxophone on day one. You probably kind of want to start off with something that you know well, but also something that's going to be manageable on the saxophone. So maybe think about some of what I listed that I got from the group. Those might be good songs to start off with. If you want to check out Taps, I made a video lesson for that one. In Saxophone Foundations, I have a few of the other songs as well. If you want to be in the beginning saxophone players group, just go to the link, answer the questions, then you can get in the group, start getting some feedback on your playing, ask some questions, talk to some other beginning saxophone players. I have classes and lessons available on saxstation.com. I've been teaching on Zoom lately. If you're having any trouble playing the saxophone, if it's not quite as easy as it seems when you hear professionals, there's probably some things that I could help you with.